I was told to avoid fat. I was cutting fat off of my meat. I was eating low-fat salad dressing, which probably had a whole bunch of seed oils in it and other unnatural items as well. I was diagnosed with congestive heart failure, an irregular heartbeat. I was also very fearful because I'm going to clog my arteries. I'm going to have a heart attack. This is dangerous. I was hoping to share some of my cholesterol numbers with you. I don't know how to interpret these things. I look at the numbers and I'm like, they're high. If anyone else that's not eating this way saw it, they'd probably panic.
They don't want this information getting out there, right? Great to be with you again, Carrie. Love everything you're doing for the documentary. Looking forward to taking part in it and just helping people understand how to heal themselves.
Absolutely. I heard this analogy. I wanted to run it by you to see if this is true, because I still get the cholesterol thing from people. If you imagine in the United States, there were about 350,000 house fires last year. And if you look at that data, in almost every instance, firemen showed up. And so if you look at that data, you could come to the conclusion firemen cause house fires. And this analogy the person was making was saying it's kind of similar with cholesterol. If you look when someone has heart disease, you see cholesterol there. The cholesterol is getting blamed for the heart disease, but in reality, the cholesterol may be going there to heal inflammation. Is that a fair analogy?
Yeah, it definitely is. You know, cholesterol is basically the body's repair mechanism for the damage that's being done to our blood vessels. And that damage is from inflammation and insulin resistance. And the problem becomes that if you keep doing the damage, and especially if the cholesterol itself is damaged, which is one of the effects from insulin resistance, that's when we start to see this plaque buildup, this atherosclerosis that, you know, leads to heart disease and leads to people having heart attacks. And you know, I think that is a very fair analogy, that the cholesterol is getting blamed, but it wasn't the cholesterol that started the problem. And that's why we go back to insulin resistance and inflammation, because if you take that out of the picture, no one has ever demonstrated, you know, that cholesterol in the blood can just spontaneously start to form plaque. You have to have damage to the blood vessel first. And that is what allows this cholesterol to then start to come into the blood vessel wall and start to build up in these plaques. So if you eliminate the insulin resistance, you eliminate the inflammation, you can effectively mitigate the heart disease risk.
Speaking of cholesterol, so I was hoping to share some of my cholesterol numbers with you. I don't know if it's worth panicking or not, but I'm hoping that this will help some other people out and maybe give them some advice on some things they can consider when looking at their lipid panels, and then also maybe some other tests that I should consider. Quick interruption. Thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in learning more about our documentary, Healing Humanity, The Power of a Proper Human Diet, or supporting it, please visit donate.healinghumanity.movie. Our goal is to reach millions of people that are hopeless right now, and sharing the examples of real people over the course of 1 year that are undertaking a proper human diet to overcome obesity, type 2 diabetes, depression, anxiety, fertility issues. We couldn't do it without you. We thank you so much. We are also selling these shirts, Healing Humanity, The Power of a Proper Human Diet. Every penny we get from those goes towards the documentary. And last, we have memberships. If you click the little join button, it's best to do it on desktop. Under any one of my YouTube videos, you can join and become a member. We have hundreds of members right now. We do members only videos. We do members only behind the scenes. You can email me as a member and I'll answer you. And every penny from that goes to support the documentary. And the last thing is we have these Redmond's portable salt shakers. These things are awesome. You can get the best salt. You can take it with you. We sell these on the website along with our water bottles and cutting boards, and every penny from all of those goes 100% towards supporting the documentary. You can also sign up for our newsletter, which is completely free. All of these links are in the description below. Thank you so much for your support. Now back to today's video. So if it's okay, Dr. Ovadia, I'd like to share this with you quickly here.
Yeah, certainly so.
I wish I had more. I was looking at my chart. So I have these I have from September of 2015 and then more recently April of 2024. You can kind of see my cholesterol numbers there.
Yeah. And so, the first thing to point out is we are looking at what is called, a basic lipid panel. It will be called the lipid panel by your doctor. But we just see the amounts of your cholesterol in general, and then LDL and HDL, which are types of cholesterol carrying particles in the bloodstream. And then we have your triglycerides, which is another fat transport molecule, essentially, that the body uses. And, most doctors look at this panel, and their first mistake is that they think that we can look at really one number on this panel, the LDL cholesterol number, and we can use that to predict heart disease risk. And that is just a fallacy. Heart disease, A, is not that simple. And B, LDL cholesterol is a lousy predictor of heart disease risk. It's essentially a 50-50 shot. And it fails in both directions. You can have people that have what is considered high LDL cholesterol, and they are not at risk of heart disease. And you can have people that have low LDL cholesterol, and they are at risk of heart disease. So that's the first thing to understand here. As I mentioned earlier, what I like to look at, and what I think, everyone, it's important for them to look at, is the quality of your cholesterol particles. And that's where we get into some of the advanced lipid testing. But when you're looking at a basic panel like this, the way that I look at it these days, and understand this isn't the way that I was taught, and this isn't the way I always looked at it. The important numbers to me here are your triglycerides and your HDL cholesterol. And specifically, you can take the ratio. You can divide your triglycerides by your HDL. And if that number is less than 1.5, it is a pretty good indicator that you are not insulin resistant and that you probably have good quality cholesterol particles. Now, I still prefer to do the more advanced testing and figure that out for sure. But, if this is all that someone has to work with, that's what you can start with. So, in 2015, if you do that math, your ratio comes out to greater than 2. Right? Your triglycerides are 128, your HDL is 53. So that's going to be, 2 point something. And that means that you had a good chance that you were insulin resistant. And if you take your current numbers, 2024, your ratio is just barely above 1.2 there. I think you did the math for us. And so that indicates that you are not insulin resistant and you probably have very good cholesterol quality. So most doctors, if you just showed them these two panels next to each other and said which patient is at greater risk of heart disease, they would almost all say the 2024 numbers. And myself, and I think a growing number of physicians are recognizing that your numbers at 2015 probably put you at greater risk of heart disease than your numbers in 2024 do, despite the fact that the LDL cholesterol is higher.
Yeah, I know this is anecdotal, but personally, I could tell you the same thing too. In 2015, I could barely stand up without getting tired and fatigued and fainting and having all sorts of issues. I feel so much better now. So, Dr. Ovadia, what would you recommend? This is the basic panel, an advanced panel, I suppose. But are there other tests you'd recommend that I get?
Yeah, so there's what's called an advanced lipid panel, or it will be called an NMR panel. And that's going to actually break down the size of your lipid particles. And that's really key information, because when we look at LDL cholesterol, what it turns out is not all LDL cholesterol particles are harmful. Some of them actually are. The small, dense particles, these are the ones that get involved in the plaque. And those are the ones you need to be concerned about. The large, fluffy, or large, buoyant particles, do not get involved in plaque formation. And in fact, they do all of the important things that LDL cholesterol does in our bodies. LDL cholesterol is part of our immune system. So it's helping us to fight off infections, helping us to fight off cancer. LDL is a precursor for many of our hormones, like testosterone in men, estrogen, progesterone in women. They all come from cholesterol that's, being transported in these LDL particles. And so, it's not the concept of we just want to, wipe cholesterol out of our bodies is really not a good one, because cholesterol does serve important purposes. So the NMR panel, and then you want to figure out, again, are you insulin resistant? There are a couple of ways of doing that. You can look at your fasting insulin level. You can get what's called an LPIR score, which is really my preference these days. So lipoprotein insulin resistance score. And that LPIR score is actually based off that advanced lipid panel. Because insulin resistance is the primary determinant of our particle sizes, of the quality of your cholesterol, we can work in reverse. If we know the size of your particles, we can then determine how insulin resistant you are, and how prone to things like diabetes you're going to be. And that's what the LPIR score does. So I'm a big fan of that test. You can also use a calculation that's called your HOMA-IR score, HOMAIR. And that is a calculation that's based off your fasting insulin level and your fasting glucose level that will also tell you whether or not you're insulin resistant. So you want to figure out if you're insulin resistant. You want to look at the quality of your cholesterol particles. And the final piece of the puzzle, like I mentioned, is inflammation. And the inflammation marker that we look at most commonly is called CRP, C-reactive protein. And that's a good measure to show you if you have inflammation in your body or not.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, on the cholesterol front, you mentioned a couple really important things. I almost feel like I was deficient in cholesterol, which probably sounds crazy to a lot of people out there. But once I started, because for so long I completely avoided any fat, any fat at all, any animal fat. I just completely avoided it. Once I started eating it, it's almost exactly like you just described it. My testosterone started going up. My sleep started improved, which probably has a lot to do with my hormones kind of balancing out. It feels like everything sort of balanced out and felt more proper when I started doing that. I guess there's a lot of other factors in play, but I almost feel like I was deficient. Like I needed some more of it. It seems like when I eat a big fatty steak too, my body is just like, yes, that's what you need to do. That was it. That was it the whole time. Just do more of that.
Yeah, and that I think is a very good signal that we don't pay enough attention to, because that's the reality of the situation. We oftentimes recommend to patients these interventions. Maybe it's the medications, maybe it's the dietary changes. With this goal of lowering this number on this blood test, and they end up feeling horrible. And yet we tell them, well, that's what it takes to be healthy. And like yourself, many people have had similar experiences where they start doing the opposite. This number gets, what they are told is worse, goes up, and yet they feel so much better. And, I think intuitively people understand that if you're feeling better, you're probably doing better. And maybe it's this number that's giving us the wrong indication, not all of the other, stuff that we have, all the other data that we have to look at.
This has been great, Dr. Ovadia. I can't thank you enough. I want to shout out for anyone watching my channel. Please go check out Dr. Ovadia. Your book is amazing. Stay off my operating table. Where else can people find you or learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah. So iFix Hearts is really where to find me everywhere. You can go to ifixhearts.com. You can see all the ways that me and my team work with people to keep them off my operating table. I have a full telemedicine practice. We also have coaching programs. We have a community. Of course, the book is a great place to start. And iFix Hearts is also across all social media where you'll find me.
That's great. I will have links to that in the description below. And I really encourage everyone to go check that out. Follow Dr. Ovadia, support him. We got to elevate the voices of good doctors like Dr. Ovadia.
Honored and blessed to be on this journey with so many good people and so many good physician colleagues along the way.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.